Standby like use 2 through 33, sound 1A through 7. On deck, standby Q actors. Electrics, kill the blue round lights, please. Like you 2 and sound 1A. Go.
From Arizona Theater Company, this is Hang in Focus with your host, Sean Daniels.
As someone that grew up in Arizona, it's a great way for us to share the work that we do worldwide.
And featuring co-host Janelle Bragg.
That is our responsibility, is to reflect what is going on in the world.
Streaming live from the State Theater of Arizona.
Let's do it. Let's really use this moment to re-envision ourselves.
Welcome to Hang in Focus, live with Sean Daniels.
This is the new Arizona Theater Company. I am just glad that you're here.
On today's show, Sean welcomes playwright Karen Zacharias.
Oh, hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Hello, Chanel. How are you?
Hello, Sean. It's good to see you, as always.
You look fantastic today. You really do.
I tried. I actually tried today, but I will be honest, I also have another engagement, so I was like, I probably should put on some more lipstick for this.
Oh, no, it looks great. You know, you look all put together. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So
I do want to. Where were you going to go?
I was literally going to talk about Halsted.
That's what I was going to too. Go for it.
Well, we have had an exciting week here at Arizona Theater Company. On Wednesday, we released our newest edition of our digital offerings, which is Halsted. It is beautiful. It's visually stunning. It's also got a lot of heart, and it's celebrating during Romero Fest our playwright in residence, Elaine Romero. And I'll have to say, I think it's the most gorgeous work. And I want to introduce it because Sean did the beautiful work of directing it. And so I just kind of want to pick your brain a little bit about what that process was like for you.
You know, what I think is amazing about this process and about Elaine, and why I would encourage everyone to watch it. So this is an autobiographical piece that Elaine wrote. And it's about her husband having a stroke and about how, if you're a playwright and you use words, how would you communicate with someone you love if words were not available to you, right? And so that's what she's trying to tackle. The first time and this is real bravery, not only did she write about herself, the first time she ever heard it read by a full cast was the first day of rehearsal. And the thing that we captured was day 6, right? And every day, the cast got an entirely new script from Elaine. And then on the second to last day, she cut an hour and a half out of the show so that we could film it. So, I mean, it's like what you were watching. And this is great for our audience. Like what you are watching is, you know, Hamlet, Angels in America. All these plays at some point had a messy first draft that went through a first week to be able to do. And when you watch it and you realize how beautiful it is and the poetry of it, you realize like this is just the beginning and this is already where it is to be able to do. I do want to shout out Will Rogers, who is our digital producer at the theater and a producer on this show, did the digital backgrounds and the editing and stuff like that. And when you watch, it's really what captures you and carries you through. So a big shout out to Will, who's with us with his camera off at this moment.
Yay, Will. And I'm also just really excited about all the beautiful acting that's in it. Like I was floored. I just thought it was a beautiful moment for ATC. And so we have 2 more days for you to check it out. So that is tonight and tomorrow. 3, and then Sunday, and then it will come down. So please make sure you have until 5:00 p.m. on Sunday to check it out. You do not want to miss it. It is beautiful work. Like Sean said, it's at the beginning of the play's trajectory. But honestly, I would not have known if you didn't tell me that it was at the beginning because it is so well written. And so, yeah, we're excited to invite you to check it out.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great way and a great way for us to celebrate Elaine. So I'm actually now working on another Elaine piece with Winding Road Theater. We started rehearsal last night. And what's great about this month is like you never get to spend a whole month working on one playwright, delving into their words. I mean, I'm now working on a play that she wrote 10 years ago, after working on one that she was writing in the room to be able to do it. And so just to be able to see the growth of her writing, the type of things that she's fascinated about. I mean, Elaine was writing about the border and social justice decades before it was the thing to be writing about, right? And so what's exciting about this moment is that, yes, the world is paying attention to these subjects, and it's great for us to be able to support them. But Elaine has kind of been out there on her own talking about these things for forever and ever and wanting to draw attention to it and talking about her family and how really it's not that her family moved, it's just the border moved on her family to be able to say where they were. And so that's why I'm so excited to be able to celebrate her. Also, she's an Arizona artist. And as we always say, you only get celebrated as an artist when you die or move away. And so we're trying to avoid that. We're trying to say like, nope, we have great artists here. Let's look at who's here right now. Let's look at who's being, celebratory and who needs the art organization to focus on them at this time.
Well, and that's a great segue to say, so next week's guest, I will be hosting because Mr. Sean will be on vacation. And we are going to have all the different Arizona companies that are participating in the Romero Fest are going to be guests on our show. So it's going to be an Arizona Love Fest next week, and we're really excited about it. And I hope you come back and check out next week as well.
Great. All right. We have, though, one of my favorite people on the show today to be able to talk about Elaine, to be able to talk about being a winner of the National Latinx Playwriting Award, and just to talk about her work because she's everywhere. So we want to welcome everyone. Please welcome to the show, Karen Zacharias, who is a delight and an amazing playwright. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Karen.
So I have something to, I want to tell you this because I don't think you know this. You play like an incredibly important moment in my life. In terms of what it is. So I got fired from Actors Theater of Louisville in 2011, right? Because I had a drinking problem. Mm-hmm. And then I went to rehab that fall. And then I started back at Jiva Theater the next year. And my first show back that was a Lort Theater was your play.
I did not know that.
It was. And what was amazing was when I got hired, all of my favorite designers, all of my favorite actors were like, whenever it's your first show back, we will be there to be able to do it. So everybody cleared their schedule. Everybody was a part of it to be able to do it. And actually, if you remember, I don't know if you were there for this, after on opening night,
the band,
the designers formed a band.
Yes.
And we put on a whole night of rock and roll and people singing live band karaoke to be able to celebrate it. So, but I've always thought so fondly of that show and that moment because there was always this thing of once you come back, you always worry that the thing that was self-destructive in you is actually what made you great. And what is it that, once you, it makes no sense, but it makes sense in my brain. And once you're able to come back, that first show back is really the do I still have it? Can I still be a part of it? Can I still work with playwrights? Can I still figure out what it was? And it was you, and you were so generous, and you were so nice, and you were so collaborative in terms of what it is. And then you really stuck to your guns on some things that you were like, that can't be in the show. That can't be in the show. This to be able to do. But so I'm always and we've known each other for a long time, right? Since then.
We used to call it when ninja calling each other. We do. You're my ninja friend.
That's right. You are still in my phone as Ninja.
Yeah, because it was hard to plan, so we just randomly we do what you're never supposed to do. Like now, you text to find out if you can call somebody. Sean and I would just call each other out of the blue because we had a free moment to connect and talk. It was the book club play,
that's right.
And Sean did an amazing production of it. And I'm still friends with all the actors and the designers. But he's also not giving himself credit. Not only did he put on the play and bring together all these people, he started something called the cohorts, which was a way of connecting the community to the process. So I went to a number of the meetings, and I went to a ladies' book club in Rochester with you to talk about books. And the amount of energy that you created, not only around the production, not only around the theater, but at the community of Rochester, was just amazing, and also speaks to why we can get stories anywhere, but the whole point of theater is community, and when it really works is communion. And I did not realize that you'd just been through this whole process. There is only genius to be seen, and warmth and greatness. And I also so appreciated you sharing this story, because all of us have vulnerabilities, and everybody thinks everybody who's doing well doesn't struggle, and we all do. So thank you for sharing that story.
Oh no, and I just found pictures beforehand of you laughing. There's this gorgeous picture of you that I just sent to our producers of you laughing because you were so great going from home to home talking about your play. In fact, so great that we made a baseball card of you.
That's
for
right.
people, that's for people to be able to have, and for people to be able
to collect.
Yeah. Well, no, but it was so, and you really made the program work, right? Because you were the first show that the cohort clubs were a part of, right? And so for them to realize, like, oh, playwrights are people. Playwrights have, like, you know, charms and worries, and that there can be a part of this, and that you could go to their homes and talk about them in terms of what it is. It really engaged them, I think, in a really deep way. And right, so we had all these people ready to support the play when it started.
Well, you tapped into something that's both my weakness and my strength, which is I'm an extroverted playwright, which is terrible because I don't want to sit by myself and write. But I love being in a room with other people. So that's, you know, personality quirks that make and break you. That's always my struggle. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to be alone for so long in order to hang out later with people. Like, why did I pick this profession? But it's the only one that has people on the other side of it. All the other writing things, you're kind of alone most of the time, unless you're a reporter. So
yeah. And I just remember going through you and Wendy McLeod are this way. And I think it's because you're playwrights with children, which is really all I want to work with. It was like the most no nonsense, no bullshit way. You'd like come in, you'd like watch a run. You're like this, and this. I'd be like, can we cut these 5 things? You're like, you can cut these 3. I gotta go. You know, and I was just like, wow, that's what it is to work with playwrights with children, because, you know, it wasn't a lot of like, I have to see it again. You're like, nope, you know exactly what you wanted. And I remember you were so on it about how do we change laughs from smiles to giggles to full out laughs to like knee slappers. Like, what is the math of that?
It's so weird. It's so weird to get to get a laugh. Sometimes you have to put the word "the" before a word, you know, that kind of, and you're very good at that, Sean. We would sit there and we'd analyze, why isn't this falling? I'm like, oh, we need to take a breath before this. And the actors were so good at feeling that out. But also, you know, the book club play, I had rewritten it 15 times. So I had been through the block with it. So your production was the last rewrites I did on that play. Like, I consider that the culmination. Like, that was, you put the last exclamation point on my script after that. So that it was a very good kind of yeah, I haven't done any changes after your production.
So let me ask you this. Do you mind sharing that process of it with us? Because I feel like for a lot of playwrights, similar to being vulnerable, they, you know, it seems like you have it all together. You know, you're unstoppable. You're on every project. Like, and I know that process was a real process for you, right? Like, what happens to cause 15 versions of a show to happen?
So the first version of the book club play, we went to the O'Neill, and that's where I met Julie Feliz Dubner, and we worked on it. And we did the world premiere at the Roundhouse Theater in Washington, D.C. And people loved it or hated it. And the local critic, guess what? He hated it. I was so surprised. I was like, what? I didn't see it coming. I was like, this is great. People are laughing. People are like, but it was a kind of review that I like went underneath my bed and cried for 3 days. Like, my husband was like, you have to get out of the house after this. And I was like, you know, and I was like, well, there's something I need to learn from it. Because obviously I got something that's right, but I didn't mean to make it's not a play meant to make people angry. It was supposed to make, you know, and it was really interesting. It was like going to therapy. Like, what is it about the play that, because one thing is if you intend to make people angry and what have you, then you're fine. But if that wasn't your intention, you know, then I was like, okay, something here is amok. And, you know, it was getting standing ovations every night, but it was also like, you know, so I had to go by and figure out what it was. And part of it is structure, part of it was movement, and also not get rid of the spark that made it happen. So that takes a lot of rewriting and taking it. And then I did another production that was worse than the other one. And then I did another one that was better. And it really, really has to be about being super honest with yourself. And I think I did I knew I was on to something really good, but I really think I did 7. I think I had 4 or 5 different versions of that play before we caught to the final version that's being done. And you were the last production where I was like, okay, now I feel it's ready. Like we learned everything we needed to learn. And by what it did at Rochester, I was like, okay, it's ready to go to the world. So,
Well, and just so important, right? That a world premiere that gets slammed by the local critic does not mean the end.
But it does mean the end for a lot of people, unless you have artistic directors and other designers who see what's good about it and they don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I could have kept that script the same way, but it was doing something wonky. So there was something to learn from that review. It wasn't probably what the reviewer wanted me to learn, but it's like he didn't have the diagnosis, but he gave me symptoms that helped me find my own diagnosis. So it was interesting. So I don't want to be grateful to that critic, but I did learn something from it. So.
I was gonna ask that, like, at what point as a playwright do you say, yes, this critic's opinion is worth me reevaluating my work, or that's just their opinion and we'll just move on to the next? Like, what was different about that interaction?
Because it wasn't just him. There was other people in the audience. I cared about the audience, right? So other people who just loved it and talked about it, and other people were like, I was so shook by it. I was like, really? It's a comedy. Like, it was someone who pretends to have cancer in it and lies to everybody. And there was just a subplot. But for people who were dealing with that disease in their life, that kind of completely took them out of the play. And that was not my intention. My intention was like the extreme, whatever people will go. And I can't psychoanalyze everybody, what have you, but it would have been something if I was trying to say something about it. It was just a plot point to make a point. And that was not the point of the play. And so I realized the fake cancer diagnosis was not helping the book club. So I went back. So it's really, really interesting. And it's hard as a younger playwright to know when it's just a matter of opinion or taste or values, and when it's actually people are hearing something you don't mean to say, right? And that's when there's something incongruous there. That's when listening to other people and go, wait, well, okay, there must be something. I am not saying this in the right way, and learning to listen is important. But it's not just about a compromise. It's just like, obviously there was some kind of disconnect with some people, but enough people that it was worth revisiting.
It's interesting. I think I told you this, and maybe it's because it's a comedy that like pushes, buttons a little bit. We had Tom Coiner, who was in our show, did this moment where he was shocked that we laughed every time he did it in rehearsal. I mean, like, we cried every time he did it in rehearsal. Like, one of those moments that like you love and love and love. And we got to very first preview and he did it, and it was silence from the audience. And it was silence for like the next 5 minutes. And it was a great lesson in how you tell jokes for an audience, because they thought he was having a heart attack or they thought something was happening.
Right.
And
And
they get worried, and suddenly nobody was attending it, and it killed all comedy for the next 5 minutes. And so, we took it out for second preview, and our favorite joke was gone, but all the other jokes were back. And it was a great lesson in just like, the audience is experiencing it for the first time, and collectively 500 people just told us our favorite moment is not actually funny.
Right. And it wasn't that it wasn't engaging. It just suddenly you had changed the rules of the play.
That's right. That like, was somebody in danger and no one was going for it?
Right.
So.
Exactly. That suddenly we made them care about these characters, and we changed the rules. And there's a contract that and that's why new plays are so interesting, is that you're writing the contract as you're going. So you're like, okay, this clause here where, so you tone and all of that are really important and really hard in the beginning to get kind of completely steady all the way through.
Is it been hard to be a woman writing comedy? Has that been tough to break into? Do you feel like you've had the support you wanted from our field?
Woman, like, Well, comedy gets love, but doesn't get respect. And so there's that idea of like, oh, people don't realize how much harder it is to write comedy, because losing one word from the line for an accident will kill a joke. Like everyone cries about the same things, but nobody laughs about the same things. So it's a skill. Like every theater wants more comedies and they ask for them, but at the same time, it's always this idea of like, oh, this is the light show. And comedic plays, comedic movies don't win Oscars. They win, Get Out, which is so subversive and so original, and had so many great themes that I think it should have won the Oscar. But there's no way that was going to happen, because not only was about African American lives and science fiction, but it was also a comedy. So this idea that comedy can't be important is exhausting. And then you get called the Irma Bombeck of theater, and I was like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know what that is, but it's interesting. But me, I'm not like funny. Like when I go out, I'm not like cracking jokes. Like it's all about deep empathy for other people and finding moments that we all recognize because we've all been in that situation. So I think comedy works when it's the human condition kind of thing.
Yeah, I just feel like there's so few people writing fantastic comedies, right, in the theater. Because if you do it pretty well, you get scooped up right away to go to other fields, right? And so one of the things I loved is that you have stuck to being like, no, like the theater needs great comedies, and it's not all you do.
It's not all I do, but it's both. You get loved, but you get not respect. That kind of thing, and you've had to learn to be like, okay, and then you bring out a drama to say, hey, I can still make you cry, ha 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 ha.
Now in comedies you've written, you wrote Native Gardens, which if I'm looking at the numbers, it's pretty positive that every single theater in the country did that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was definitely one of the most produced plays in 2018 and 2019, and it was scheduled to have about 30 productions in 2020. So, yeah. So,
and I remember I called you when I was up for this job to find out like what it was like to produce Native Gardens. And I remember you telling me, you said they laugh at different things in Tucson than they laugh at in Phoenix. that was and I remember getting off the phone being like, I don't know what that advice means, but it's
right. Well, I mean, it works, but I mean, I've seen the play in really conservative towns, and I've seen it in very liberal towns, and I've seen them mixed towns, and it works in all of them. But what people react to and who people were on which side, it was a very interesting experience, because it was definitely even though the play is about plants, it's also about politics and so many other things. But it was a disarming play because it was about neighbors, and everybody understands neighbors, and everybody understands property value. So there was a way in that didn't make people defensive, and that's the one thing I found very interesting, that people were judging both couples across the way, and at the end, the person you're really judging is yourself. Like, how would I react? What kind of neighbor? What kind of neighbor am I? At least that's what I'm hoping people took away from it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was lucky enough to produce it in Massachusetts, where the thing I was told about Massachusetts is that everybody's liberal till you try to move a tree. And it was like, it fitted perfectly with your thinking about what it is, right? Like everybody votes liberal, but what does it really mean when your neighbors, want to be able to do something
right
else?
And your production in Massachusetts had the wonderful and unique that your Tanya was actually sick. You're the only production that actually had a real tree from outside that someone had fallen over somebody's yard and you brought in, and you actually had a real pregnant woman as the pregnant woman who later gave birth, a month after the production. Like, it was very reality. It was very meta in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, we were working on it and we're like, I don't think we can afford, how do we do this tree? And then somebody called and they were like, a tree fell down in my front lawn. And so like the whole staff had to go get a tree to put it inside. And then it was great. It was great to have. It was so funny. Actually, that year we had 2 shows with pregnant women in it.
That's amazing.
That and Women in Jeopardy. For Women in Jeopardy, we had to get our actress a new pair of pants every week because she couldn't figure out why she was growing at such a fast rate. As it turned out, she was having twins, but she didn't know it at the time to be able to do it. But no, it was fascinating to do a tech process with a pregnant woman because everybody, the second that she would act like, she was tired, it was breaks, everybody running down, and we're like, she was like, no, I'm acting. We're like, oh, great. I'll be able to do it.
And what's your plan B for something like that? Like, do you have an understudy that would go on and essentially, or do you just kind of?
I think we were going to close right around, month 7 or month 8 in terms of where it was. But of course, now that I've had a daughter that came 5 weeks early, I realized that was not a good plan, because I was like, 9 months. Of course, we got time. We got now I realize oh, that's not how the world works. Yeah.
But Veronica was also doing a play while she was pregnant too, right?
She also did a play when she did 2 different plays. When she was pregnant. And actually I was telling this story the other day, she was doing Men in Boats when we were doing IVF. And one of the things about IVF is that you have to do shots in your stomach and in your butt. And, it's like, and they give you no training. They give you a video to watch if you're the partner helping to be able to do it. And we're so lucky because she was doing Men in Boats with all of these trans actors who were also getting shots for their transitions that they were like, I'll show you how it's done. And so they guided us through the whole IVF process to be able to do it. Because you have to do it at 6 or 7 each day. Yeah. So she would do her shots backstage before going on to do it. See? And then her next
There's multitudes in people.
Yeah. Well, and then her next show, she was pregnant when she was doing her next show. And, she still talks about their parts of the show that our daughter didn't like. Because it was, she could feel every night at this point, and because it was an emotional show and she had to cry while doing it. And whenever she cried, she could feel that Vivian was upset. And so, we were just trying to make it, because once you know somebody who's trying to be pregnant and have an acting career, it's near impossible for them to be able to do it. And, we can talk about actors' equity and how hard that makes it, but just on top of people casting, right, in terms of what it is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I got pregnant with my 3rd one, everybody's like, nobody has 3 children, 4 and younger, and works in the theater. And I cried. And so the whole time I was pregnant, I wrote 5 plays because I thought I would never write again. And the book club play and Legacy of Life, all those plays were the 9 months I was gestating my 3rd child, because I was sure that was it. And it wasn't it, but it was hard. It took a lot of different,
Did the sun go down?
Where on the light,
you are so like.
It just the sun is going down on the East Coast.
No, I know. It's amazing. It was amazing mood lighting, and then suddenly you were gone.
Yes. Everything isn't working.
There we go. Oh, look, there you are again.
Okay, my other light isn't working so well. It's kind of but I don't know if you can see it's really pretty over here.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Washington, D.C. at dusk.
Well, and just to pick up back where we were, I didn't realize that you wrote all those plays when you were pregnant because you feared that was going to be the end of it.
Yeah. I thought I threw it like an anchor to the other side. I'm like, well, at least those will be written and maybe something will happen or something like that. But yeah, I did. And then I nursed my baby, wrote it. And then I really, really thought it'd be over. But then different actors, Molly Smith and different people like, oh, we're interested in it. It kept going. And then once you get the opportunities, you find a way to make them work. It's just the idea of not getting the opportunities that's very daunting.
So how did you be a new mother and a playwright at the same time? Just how, as someone who has a small child, how do you do that? What?
Well, it wasn't just it was 3 small children. So,
right.
Yeah. So We had a good preschool. And the biggest thing is I was running a theater company at the time. And I realized that if I was going to be a mother and a writer and an artistic director, something had to give. So the artistic director part had to go. And then my husband and he decided that we would go in debt, and we would hire somebody twice a week to come in for a couple of hours so I could write. So I wrote about 3 hours a week while someone came in. And I've never been more focused and done it and what have you. I wish almost I could get that back, but that was like a really interesting investment in both our future and our happiness and making our family work. And so that, he was a federal employee and I wasn't earning my salary anymore. And he was like, well, we're just gonna max out credit cards and hope for the best, which I don't think is great advice in general, but it helped us. It helped us survive because I had a 4-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2.5-year-old, and a newborn, and so it was a lot, but we made it work. We made it work.
Oh, but
my mom lives close by too. She came over a lot, so that having parents is a real. I mean, I'm from a Mexican family, so basically, I can't move anywhere without moving my parents and move everybody. So that's part of it too, is the idea of family helping you out, which is something that in Mexico is a big part of family. In the United States, it's a little bit more about independence and that type of thing. So I've always had this. Why do I live in Washington, D.C. when I could live in New York, or I could live in LA, or, Chicago? And it's because my family's here. And so that's why I'm a playwright here in Washington, D.C., because the idea of not having my network of family and friends is hard. It's hard as a working parent to think of it surviving.
One of the plays you've written that I was going to go see, but didn't happen because it was postponed, takes place in Arizona.
Yes.
Right, which is The Copper Children.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just say a little bit about this? And then we'll talk about Elaine, which is what we said we were going to talk
about.
Oh my God,
I love Elaine.
I know, and then we got distracted.
So The Copper Children is based on a case that was called the Case of the Century in 1905. And it's a case of child abduction and custody when a group of the Irish orphans in New York were considered the lowest of the low. And the Irish nuns were like, we need to send them out west. And a lot of Protestant orphanages were sending kids out west, but without finding out who the parents are. And the Catholics, we need Catholic parents for our kids. And they sent out a request, and a priest out in Arizona was like, oh, I have lots of Catholics who would love to adopt your Irish children. The nuns were like, great. And they took 57 kids up to the copper mines in Clifton and Morenci. But who was Catholic back then? The Mexican miners. And so when the Mexican miners adopted all of these, Irish children, because they were all of the same faith, the rest of the town went a little berserk, and in the middle of the night kidnapped all the kids from the family and took them, and it became a custody fight that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And it's a very little known story. There's several books and articles about it, but it was considered the president. So it was analyzing that incident in Clifton and Morenci after this. And there's talks about labors and unions and race and environmental issues, because a lot of the women were infertile. Both the white women and the Mexican women were infertile because of the copper in the air. So it was fascinating. I did 4 years of research and rewriting, and super powerful. And we opened it at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and it had an amazing opening night. And then it closed the next day because of COVID. So we opened on March 7th. And And
Oh,
then
so that's your 1 year anniversary of What Were You Doing a Year
Right.
ago? You
I
were
was- I
you were
was-
basking
was
in a
a
new play.
I was in a fabulous opening night of Copper Children. And another theater was doing Destiny Desire, which is another play of mine. And they both closed on March 9th, basically.
Yeah, I know. I was going to go. I was like, oh, I have to go see this play that takes place in Arizona. I have plenty of time. Little did I know.
It was going to be up for 10 months. It was going to be like the longest run of any of my plays. And that did not happen. And a part of me is grateful that at least we got it up. I had friends with plays who were opening off Broadway or, in New York around 9/11, and those plays just never came back. And at least I'm like, well, we had that. We went through rehearsal. We discovered so many things. We were together. We had a great cast. We had great designers. And even though it was only up for one night, there's a saying in Spanish, lo bailado, nadie te lo quita. That which you have danced, no one can take away from you. So I feel at least I got one dance for that play, and hopefully it will have a life, because a lot of the themes it's talking about are still relevant today, and especially with what was happening at the border with child separation. It was definitely this echo of something that had happened 100 years ago that was still relevant.
Well, I hope that it comes back. I hope that we get to see it. I hope,
Well, Arizona is so interesting. It's I'm writing another piece that is based in Arizona, and I just think it's such a confluence of so many different cultures and things going on. I mean, there's a reason why politically everybody's looking at Arizona, and geographically and everything. You live in a really, really dynamic, interesting, and controversial state, and I am excited to be part of it in some way.
Well, I always say, I think it's an honor to do theater here, where essentially Arizona is the soul of the country, right? It's trying to figure out who are we? What do we believe in? What do we do? Right. We voted, all blue in the last election. I will bet you it probably doesn't all go that way in 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. So because we're still figuring out exactly who we are and what's different. And very much, for those of us that lived in Georgia, very similar feeling.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes you're in Atlanta, sometimes you're in Georgia, right? Was always the thing we said. And it was just it's us being able to do that. So let's talk about Elaine Romero, which was the whole point, except you're too delightful, so we didn't get to it. How long have you known Elaine?
So I met Elaine in a bathroom at South Coast Repertory. I had my first play, it was my first reading, a big national reading at the Hispanic Playwrights Project, which is part of the Pacific Playwrights Festival at South Coast Rep. And I had Elizabeth Pena, who was the star, but I was so nervous. I couldn't stand it. They'd just done a reading. I had run from the reading to the bathroom to kind of put water in my face and hyperventilate. And I was hiding in a stall, and somebody was talking to say, well, what'd you think about the play? Da, 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 da. And Elaine spoke. I didn't know her. She's like, oh, I found it was so, she said some beautiful things about the importance of representation and women and how that was her, anyway, she said so many nice things, which is not what always happens in the bathroom, right? And then, and so when I got out, because I braced myself to hear it. When I got out, she was still in line, and I went up to her and I said, I just want to say, I overheard you, and I just want to say thank you. And she goes, oh, I'm a playwright too. And that's even more wonderful when another playwright says something nice about you. And we became great friends. And I loved all her work. And I have to tell you, that is Elaine. She is generous. She cares about why people are writing, what they're doing. She's there to support you. She's come to DC a couple of times. She had a wonderful play called Death Comes for the Archbishop. When I met her, she was just getting ready. She was just in the beginning of her relationship with Brad and about to get married. So I feel like I didn't have kids at that time. So we've been kind of cheerleaders for each other over time and distance and decades. And she's so prolific, and she is just, I don't think there's anybody like her in the American theater who is as happy for everybody else's success and as happy for to discuss really hard topics, is as committed to community and to excellence as the way Elaine is. There's just, you'll never hear anybody say anything negative about Elaine, because there's nothing to be said. And Brad is wonderful. And she just, I mean, she lives her whole life fully. Like a part of her, you know, what happened with Brad and his stroke and dealing with that, that's part of her art, but it's also how she deals with life. And what she's done for the Latino community, what she's done for Arizona community, what she's done for women, I don't know. I mean, I am a huge, huge fan. I think Elaine can be really proud of the life and the art that she has provided for us. And I don't know everyone, all of us can say that. And so when I saw that you were doing a festival of Elaine, they might as well just, you know, you might just call it the Love Festival, because that's what Elaine is, because she is just generous, and, you know, she's always who she is. And that's not always true in this profession.
I can attest to that, because I've been helping organize the festival. And so she's leveraged her personal relationship with a lot of the theaters that have been invited. And every single person that I talk to goes on and on about how great she is and what a light she is and how much they enjoy her work. And so thank you for your sentiments about her. And also, it's something very powerful, woman to woman, to lift each other up, because sometimes we can be very competitive with one another. Sometimes our industry pits us up against each other, right? And to be competitive, and to see that you guys have found that synergy with each other, and you've been able to be partners for a long period of time, that's just very inspiring to me.
She does that for everything. I mean, she is just not a person who's led by insecurities, and that makes her very powerful, a very confident, and a very compassionate artist, and really a role model to a lot of people. And she's so committed to being from where she is. She's so committed to Arizona. This is where her family's lived for generations. And she embraces a complicated, beautiful, and complex history in all her work. It's just, well, she's got great hair.
The best.
Really great hair. So, you know, and she does yoga, and she's vegan. And anyway, she's just so authentic and so uncompromising and compromising at the same time. Like, you know what, it's never about her. It's always about the work. It's always about other people. She's really, really generous.
Well, and you know, when I got here, I'd always known Elaine Romero, the playwright, but I didn't know that she had been the playwright in residence for like 22 years. I mean, that is a huge investment in one community.
And not only that, she was the one who kind of like ran the National Latinx Playwriting Award. Like, she was committed to that. And even, you know, and even though sometimes like, why hasn't the theater she's worked at done some of her work, right? You know what I mean? And she's being done in other places, and she just never let that be a problem. You know, she's like there to support and do that. But I just think it's so appropriate that you are celebrating her in this way, because she is so giving and so talented. No,
she's so much more generous than me. At year 5 of not being produced at a theater, I'd be like, I gotta go, you know, in terms of what it is. But for her, it's about the community here, and it's about like what it is. And for her, it's important that she's never going to leave where her family is from. Right. That it's important to her. And regardless of anything that happens, nobody moves her family, right, to be able to do it.
Exactly. And so that she, exactly. So her commitment is just extraordinary. And I just am so glad that she's being celebrated by the theater that she's given so much to over there.
And maybe this is the same for you in DC. Often artists have larger national profiles or international profiles than they do locally, right? We kind of assume if you're from here, and Arizona, because I grew up here, I know it's 100% this way. If you live here, everybody assumes you can't make it somewhere else, right? Not that you would have chose it. It's like, we're only a couple hours from LA. You should really be there if you were doing it. And it's like, 100% not true.
It's, you know, I live in DC. So those of us who don't live in the big hubs, I understand that true. And, you know, there's another saying in Spain. I'm just like, my grandmother's going to be so happy with all these things I'm throwing out, but nadie es profeta en su propia tierra. No one's a prophet in their own land. You have to like be recognized from another line before you come back. And Elaine's Barrio Hollywood was a huge success in Oregon and then in San Diego, and she's had fantastic readings at the Good. I mean, she is just like, she is and wow, she's just the thing. So I'm just really, really, really glad that her patience and her commitment to, it always pays off to believe in yourself and believe in your community.
Oh,
for sure. And we're happy we're doing 2 of her titles. Yeah. So the Romero Fest has allowed me to become deeply involved in her writing more than I ever have been before. And so we're doing Halstead now, and we'll be doing Ponzi later on this month.
Yeah, and she's got so much work. She's so prolific and so many different types of plays. She really, they will be studying her in universities for many years to come.
So just along those lines, can we do a little Melissa Crespo shout out? Because Melissa is directing our production of Ponzi. And then she is directing our production of Christmas at Pemberley when we return. And how do you know Melissa Crespo?
Melissa Crespo and I go way back. She did a production of Destiny of Desire in a small theater in Florida, and we became really good friends through that. And it's just amazing. She understood my sense of humor and everything. And then when Native Gardens, there's an opportunity, Native Gardens, for a 3-way production that ended up in Jiva as well. I recommended her to the artistic director at Syracuse Stage because I loved working with her, and she did an amazing production there. And, she does opera, she writes, she also has great hair. It's just, she is just one of my favorite people. And because she lives in New York, like we got to know each other through internet, through phone calls, through that type of thing. And she's just one of the people that I always like, I'm like, get her on your list, get her in your theater, because not only is she committed to excellence of the play, she understands new play work, but she also has this, the dynamic nature of what a play does to a community and what it does to a theater. So she does there's a lot of extra work, especially when you do Latino plays or people who've been underrepresented, there's extra work that comes along with it. You have to prepare the theater and audience members and the marketing department and all of that. And she has the enthusiasm and the tools and the finesse to be able to do so many things at once while directing. And, should we have to do all those things? Who knows? But it does help. It does help new plays a lot. And she's a great ally and a great friend.
Yeah, I think I met her because you were like, here's someone you have to know. You would love them.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like every opportunity, I was given opportunities because other people like opened the door, and that's all. Like the idea that there's not enough work and not enough, like the more abundance, the more generous, the more more like Elaine Romero we all are, and encourage and do other work. The happier we will all be, the better the theater will be, because it makes you bring out your best work. It brings up your excellence. You do not have to destroy and put down in order to succeed. In fact, it helps because we are in a work that deals with collaboration, that you can joyfully help each other become better artists and better people. And I think you surrounded yourself, Sean, with a lot of that, which speaks really well of you. And Chanel, look at her, this is great.
I know, Chanel, yeah. So
who also has great hair. You're just
I know, right? That's
I'm glad I get to join the Karen Club of good hair.
I know.
I want to be one. I'm working to getting good hair, but I fantastic, smart, dynamic woman with great hair. What more can you ask?
So we ask every guest that comes on if they have a word that they want to leave with us, which ends up becoming the name of the episode. So do you have a word that you want to share with us that's on your mind right now?
Generosity.
And can you just say a little bit about why that word? I know we're talking about Elaine, but more than that.
Yeah, no, because the theater is about the theater is a lot of people think of the theater as giving, and a lot of people think of the theater as taking. And I think the people who those of us who come back and keep working at it is because we find that it gives. And in order to give, you have to come in with your best faith effort. You have to try, you have to, when you get a bad review, see what in yourself is like, oh, what can you make better? It's always like I always enter each project as how can I learn and become a better artist from this? And to do that, to surround yourself with generous people, they allow you to grow. And so that it's been this weird thing that people think that you have to like diminish things to get people to excel. And I find that those people who are now running theaters and doing that we've all found that that's because our livelihood, our life, it's not just a job, it's so many different things. So I appreciate generosity.
No, but we're kind of trained from early on that someone else's success is your loss, right? And we have to unlearn that along the way, because we're kind of taught that right, in school, there's only so many slots and there's only so many jobs. And I remember being told like 90% of you won't be working in the field in 10 years.
Yeah, it's a zero-sum game. Yeah.
Which I guess is helpful in terms of if people were like on the fence between being like a doctor or an actor, like maybe they go do something else. But I do think for those of us that stuck with it, it does set this mindset that like there's only a few slots and we're all going to, fight our way to the top and 3 of us will make it there. And it's just not true.
It certainly, that feels very harsh and hard. And I mean, and I say this as a person who competes against dead people all the time and they win. Like they get their plays up, and that's okay. Like we all entered this profession knowing there's crazy limitations on it for many different reasons, and but we all have valid stories to tell. And so as someone said, I saw this on Twitter the other day, networking isn't about finding people higher up to like bring you up. It's about making friends that you all kind of say, oh, I want to work together. I want to learn from you. And you keep opening doors, before and beside and behind you. And so that's what I hope will happen when we go back.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for being with it. I could talk to you for like another 3 hours.
I know. I was just like, is it already time?
Well, you guys make everyone feel comfortable, and we're spilling tea here. We're like, so anyway. And I miss being in the rehearsal room. I miss being in the theater. I miss audiences. So thank you for an opportunity to hang out together and talk. And I look forward to meeting you in real life, Chanel. So.
I can't wait to meet you too in real life. And I can't wait to read all the beautiful things that you've written while we've been in this year of the unknown and what that's pulled out of you. I'm really excited to see what the next trajectory of your...
Me too. Maybe I should get going on that.
I know. And you're like, Chanel wants to read some plays. I got to start. Yeah.
Oh my God, finally. Yeah. I like, yeah, I've been binging on TV shows, but now there's awesome. A feeling there's something there that we can move towards, that maybe maybe some more writing will come out.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. All right. Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for
coming. Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Chanel, what do we have? What's up next week for us?
Next week, we have some local love going down. So all of the different local theaters that are participating in the Memorial Fest will be guests. So we have the Bridge Initiative. We have Child's Play. We have Winding Road, Scoundrel Scamp, the cast of Ponzi. So I'm really excited. It's going to be a lot of people on. So, I'll try to navigate the conversation where not too many people are talking at one time. But think 24-hour plays. So there'll probably be like 12 or more people on. We're excited.
That's great. That's great. And next Friday is actually my wife's birthday, so I will not be here. I will be off celebrating that. So
that is very important.
That's right. Yeah.
And tell Veronica we said early happy birthday to her as well.
Definitely, we will. All right. Thank you all so much for watching, and are we going to the call board now?
We're going right on over to the call board. Check it out.
Let's do it. Thank you all so much.
This is your call board for March 12th through the 19th. Hi, I'm Will Rogers, Community Engagement Manager for Arizona Theater Company, and thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you caught Sean's interview with Karen Zacharias, former National Latinx Playwriting Award winner and writer of Native Gardens, which we produced right here on our stage a few years ago. So if you didn't catch it now or anytime on Facebook or YouTube now. Let's see what's coming up on future episodes of Hang and Focus. On March 19th, our Romero Fest celebration will continue when we invite Arizona theaters and artists that are involved in the festival to the show. We'll be joined by Tucson's Winding Road and the Scoundrel and Scamp Theater, and Phoenix's Child's Play and the Bridge Initiative, as well as cast members from ATC's reading of Elaine Romero's Ponzi. And we'll be joined by scholars and participants in Romero Fest to reflect back on this amazing month on March 26th. Moving into April, we'll be joined by Chris Will from Pima Community College to talk about his new partnership with our Department of Learning and Education. And that will be on April 2nd. So we hope that you'll join us for some of these exciting shows coming up. And if you do join us and you do have a good time, you do enjoy what you hear, please subscribe to us, like us, follow us, forward it to a friend, send a text or an email with a link in it. You can even get someone on the phone and just tell them how great the conversations that we're having on Hang and Focus are and what they mean to you and impact the things that you're thinking about. So they certainly do that for us, and we enjoy bringing them to you every Friday at 4 o'clock Arizona time. And if you miss it then, you can find it on Facebook or YouTube anytime after. There's no excuse to miss it. And please join in the conversations. We love hearing back from you. Now, March is Women's History Month, and we have decided that we want to share some of the amazing women that work right here at ATC with you all month long. So we'll be bringing you different women that are on our staff that are contributing to the conversation in Arizona, the theater community writ large, and the world right now, because we can reach people all over. So first up is our illustrious leader, Jerry Wright, and the Woman of the Month, Miss Elaine Romero herself. Jerry Wright has been managing director of Arizona Theater Company since January of 2020 and led us through this difficult time. Before that, she was the president and CEO and executive director of Act One Arizona, which brought school children from all over Arizona to see live performance and live theater, doing really amazing work there. She's also worked at the Herd Museum and at the American Red Cross Grand Canyon chapter. Jerry is an inspiration and a true leader. And because she says she just gets too much sleep, she has two beautiful horses at home that she also wakes early to feed every day. And since March is Romero Fest, I'd like to highlight Elaine Romero herself. This professor and playwright has written over 90 plays. She's an amazing human being with an amazing heart and amazing talent, and we're excited to celebrate her work all month long. Speaking of, here is the schedule for Romero Fest this week. ATC's reading of Elaine's newest play, Halstead, is available through this Sunday, the 14th, so catch that while you can. And this week, we're excited to have two premieres as part of Romero Fest. Tucson's own Winding Road Theater Ensemble will be bringing you a digital reading of Wetback, directed by ATC's Sean Daniels. We're excited to be a co-producer on that project and can't wait to see it on our screens this week. Teatro Travieso, Troublemaker Theater, in collaboration with Romero Fest, are bringing you Elaine Romero Shorts. 4 days, 4 plays. These 4 plays will be directed by Jimmy A. Noriega, who joined us for our Scholars panel last week. If you didn't check that out, it's still available online, and you can get information on this, Wetback, Halstead, and all the happenings of Romero Fest at our website, arizonatheater.org. So please join us there, explore, poke around. You'll find something right for you. I promise there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's really exciting. Please be safe this weekend. Have a great time. And